morning, everybody. Here in Blossville, New York, Zone 5, our hydrangeas are in peak bloom. And I'm wondering if some of you have the same kind of thoughts, questions, and concerns that I do when dealing with hydrangeas. Hello, my name is Lynette, and welcome to my garden. Today, we're going to talk about Limelight hydrangeas. Now, this specimen is in my neighbor's yard. This is her plant. It is probably about 9 years old now, and she does nothing to it. She lets it go a la naturel, and look at how magnificent it ends up being. You can see just how big it is. I'm about 5'3", and this can be quite the showstopper if you just let it go and do what it wants to do. The problem is, a lot of us want to take this large form and change it into something different. This is what a lot of people are trying to achieve from that Limelight hydrangea. They want to take a huge shrub with multi-stems and turn it into a single trunk, small specimen type tree. Now that can be done because hydrangeas, especially the Limelight, is super tough and can take a lot of pruning, but it does require some pruning, and this is where a lot of the problems come in. Now, this hydrangea we planted, it was in this form when we bought it, and we put it in last fall, and I have done nothing to it this year. I just let it go a la naturel. And I can't let it go a la naturel every year because that single trunk is never going to be able to support a canopy that is 10 feet wide, like the hydrangea in my neighbor Kasha's yard. So I'm going to have to come in here and prune, and I'm going to do the pruning next year. But I'm going to show you what happens when we prune it from all the instructions that I have seen on YouTube or read about in other things. They tell you basically to take the single trunk and then prune all of these branches back till it's about the size of a basketball. And there's a problem when you do that. Let me show you what happens when you prune it back to that size. This is my neighbor Jessica's tree. She was told when she bought this plant to clip it back so the stems are about 6 to 8 inches long, and every year it would grow back and provide her these beautiful flowers, which it does. But look at, they're just these long single stalks, huge flowers at the top, but when it rains, they're so heavy that the branches just weep. This is a pruning issue. How many of you guys are experiencing this? We're back in my garden right now, and this is my Limelight hydrangea. And you may notice that it is not as big and wide as Kasha's, the first one that we looked at. That's because every year I have to trim this down. If I were to do it over again, I would be looking for a plant that would fit this size so that I wouldn't have to trim it. That way I could leave it like Kasha does and just let it go a la naturel. But 15 years ago, there weren't the variety that were on the market like there are now. So rule number one is find the plant that fits your space so that you don't have to do massive pruning, especially if you just want it to be that round form. Now, I do trim this down severely, and I'm going to insert a video that I recorded earlier this year of just how severe I trim this back. There's all kinds of videos on YouTube explaining how to trim a Limelight hydrangea, but I don't think there's any out there when you trim it wrong and what happens when you trim it wrong, not just 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, but every year if you go in and you just severely cut it back. That's what we're going to look at today. I'm going to take this Limelight hydrangea and I'm going to make it look ugly. I'm going to take it back really, really far. And then we're going to watch it over the season and see just exactly what happens and how it ends up looking in the fall. This shrub is a mess. I have crossing branches. I didn't always pay attention to just before a bud, is that where I cut, or if the bud was facing one direction or another direction. I just went in and indiscriminately cut back wherever my pruners went in. So let's see what happens to these two shrubs, because he did 2 of them, and what they end up looking like later in the season. Because I trim so severely, just like Jessica was told to at her nursery, I too get these long single stems with these really heavy blossoms. And this year a storm came through and just knocked everything over early in the season. and my stems are just all crooked, they're interwoven. It's a nightmare in there. So I need to do something different. And I bet if you're getting these same results, you want to try something different as well. Even Kasha's Limelight, the one that's untrimmed, sends up these long, slender stalks with these huge flower heads on it. So this is not something that is unique to the way we're pruning it. This is something that the Limelight Hydrangea does. This is the way it grows. The difference is when you don't prune it back, you have a multitude of stems over the years that can help support these flower heads. And when you don't have that, that's why we get the flopping like we have here. And that got me thinking, we're definitely pruning wrong, but are we pruning wrong at the wrong time of year? And what I mean is, there should be a way that we can control this floppiness, control these long, slender stems. And there is a gardening method that does just that, and it's called the Chelsea chop. And the Chelsea chop refers to the Chelsea Flower Show in England, which takes place the end of May, beginning of June. And that's a signal to gardeners to go in and start chopping down some of their perennials. And what that does to their perennial plants is instead of just having one flower stalk, it sends up a couple flower stalks, and then there's flowers on each end of those stalks. So your flower heads might be a little bit smaller, but you'll have more flowers on the plant. It can also change the blooming time slightly, so you may get it to bloom a little bit later than it normally would. But I'm wondering, do we need to Chelsea chop? Maybe that's the answer to flopping hydrangeas. And then I was watching a YouTube video from Pathetic Gardens. They're a nursery, and they were talking about tree hydrangeas. And when they came to the Limelight, they said, you need to prune it twice. You need to do that initial prune that we all have been told to do, and then at the beginning of June, Chelsea time, you go in and you cut it back again. And that sends up stronger stems, smaller flowers, but multiple, but you don't have as long stems like this that will flop over. Now, if you get rain, you still might get some flopping, but it won't be quite as bad as they look right now. So I think I'm going to Chelsea chop next year. Have you guys ever done this on your Limelight hydrangeas? This is something totally new to me, but I'm going to give it a try. And if you're afraid to do it, then just follow along and watch me next year, and let's see how my hydrangeas take to a Chelsea chop. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please be sure to share, like, subscribe, and please give me a like. That tells YouTube that this video is worth other gardeners watching. So I appreciate all my subscribers so much. We are doing really well. I'm proud of my channel and how many of you are liking it. So get out in your garden, have some fun, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.